let's be real for a second. If you look around today, it really feels like we're just constantly bombarded by stressors, doesn't it? Between the endless smartphone notifications, crazy demanding schedules, and just the overall unpredictability of life, it is incredibly easy to feel completely overwhelmed. But what if I told you the blueprint for handling all of this modern chaos was actually drawn up over 2,000 years ago? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into in this explainer today, unpacking the incredibly practical, resilience-building strategies of ancient Stoicism.
But wait, before we get into the actual strategies, we've got to address the elephant in the room. Are Stoics just emotionless robots? Seriously, ask yourself what comes to mind when you hear the word Stoic. You're probably picturing someone with a stiff upper lip, right? Someone who represses all their feelings, grits their teeth through the pain, and just acts like a brick wall. Well, it turns out that is a massive, incredibly widespread misconception.
You see, there is a massive difference between the modern dictionary definition of being stoical with a lowercase s, which, is all about bearing your emotions, and the rich emotional reality of the ancient Greek philosophy of Stoicism with a capital S. The actual ancient philosophy assumes the ultimate goal of life is a profound form of happiness, a happiness built on rational self-love and deep, genuine affection for other people. It is absolutely not about turning off your emotions, it's about transforming them.
So to really get a grip on how this transformation works, we're pulling insights directly from Donald Robertson's fantastic book, Stoicism and the Art of Happiness, along with some expert analysis of ancient texts. Robertson has spent years literally living this philosophy and adapting it for modern psychotherapy, and he shows us exactly how this ancient wisdom maps perfectly onto our modern, highly stressful lives.
Let's jump right into Section 1, Ancient Roots of Modern Therapy, Bridging the Gap.
So if the goal wasn't just to feel absolutely nothing, what was the point, right? Well, the ultimate aim of Stoicism was to achieve what the Greeks called eudaimonia. Now that translates roughly to happiness, but it's much, much deeper than just a fleeting sense of joy. We're talking about profound flourishing, living consistently in harmony with the nature of the universe. It's all about becoming psychologically resilient by aligning your internal compass with reason, rather than just getting tossed around by whatever crazy external events happen to you.
Now, if focusing on changing your internal perspective sounds a bit familiar, it really should, because ancient Stoicism is literally the granddaddy of modern self-help. When we compare the ancient Stoic therapy of the passions with modern cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, the parallels are just striking. Both of them hinge on the exact same core idea. It's our beliefs and our patterns of thinking, our cognitions, that actually cause us emotional distress, not the external events themselves.
And guys, this isn't just some fun historical coincidence. The actual founders of modern cognitive therapy directly point to the Stoics as their primary philosophical inspiration. In his foundational 1979 textbook, Aaron T. Beck, who is literally the founder of cognitive therapy, stated plain as day that the philosophical origins of cognitive therapy can be traced back to the Stoic philosophers.
Okay, but you might be thinking, does this ancient framework actually work for normal people today? The answer is a resounding yes. To put this in perspective, a pilot study over at the University of Exeter found that after just one single week of practicing basic Stoic concepts, participants yielded a roughly 10% increase in psychological well-being and a 10% decrease in negative emotions. That is a measurable, scientific improvement in just 7 days, and it's all from simply treating your mind like an ancient philosopher would.
Moving on to Section 2, Seneca and the Passions, Dissecting Anger.
So, to the Stoics, anger was the ultimate example of a passion, or pathe. Fun fact, that's actually the root of our modern word pathology. For the ancient Greeks and Romans, falling into these passions was seen almost like a sickness of the mind. It's a highly undesirable state to be in, mostly because it goes completely against reason, causing us to act super haphazardly and, frankly, make terrible decisions.
But again, remember, they were not robots. The Stoics absolutely felt deep, powerful emotions. They just drew a really hard line between pathy, those irrational, destructive storms like the sudden thirst for revenge, and eupatheia, which were considered genuinely good feelings. If an emotion aligned with reason and truth, like the profound love you feel for your family or your kids, that was celebrated. The whole goal was simply to avoid the irrational storms while actively cultivating rational, justified joy.
Which brings us to Section 3. The 3 movements of anger.
Seneca, and honestly modern cognitive science, completely agrees here. Realize that anger doesn't just happen all at once in some giant explosion. It actually unfolds in 3 very distinct phases. Step 1 is the involuntary physiological reaction. Say someone cuts you off in traffic and boom, you get a sudden rush of adrenaline. You cannot control this. It's just a biological reflex. Step 2 is the cognitive narrative. This is where you start telling yourself a story in your head, deciding if you've been wronged. And then step 3 is anger proper, where you completely lose rational control and find yourself screaming at the windshield. Now here is the absolute key to the whole thing. That second movement, it's the critical stage. It is your split-second choice. When you feel that initial adrenaline rush, your mind offers you a narrative. It says, that driver insulted me, I need to retaliate. In this tiny, tiny window, you have the power to either grant or withhold assent to that narrative. Withhold your agreement and the anger just stops. But say, yes, I am under attack, and you plunge straight into step 3. This tiny window is literally where you stop anxiety or regret before it ever really starts.
Let's put this into practice with Section 4, Practical Tools for Daily Life.
So how do we actually stop anger before that very first movement even kicks in? Seneca has some great preventative strategies for us. First off, simply avoid people and activities you already know are going to trigger you. It sounds basic, but it works. Beyond that, take an honest look at yourself, because hey, maybe you're the one at fault. Try giving other people the benefit of the doubt. And perhaps my favorite, most effective tool, use humor to diffuse the tension. Looking at things calmly and just laughing at the sheer absurdity of a situation completely strips anger of its power over you.
Okay, but what if you slip up? It happens to the best of us. If you find yourself already past that second movement and caught in a full-blown anger episode, Seneca has emergency interventions. And honestly, his advice from 2 millennia ago is exactly what a modern therapist would tell you today. Disengage immediately. Take deep breaths, count to 100, excuse yourself and go for a walk. Just do whatever it takes to get out of the situation and buy yourself enough time so your rational mind can finally catch up with your physiology.
And these emergency tools fit perfectly into the daily resilience routine used by the folks in that successful University of Exeter study we talked about earlier. They relied heavily on 3 classic strategies. First, Stoic mindfulness, or prosauche, which is continually treating ourselves with reason throughout the entire day. Second, a retrospective evening meditation, where you critically, but very gently, review your day to see how you can improve tomorrow. And finally, the view from above, which is a really cool imagination exercise where you just zoom out to a cosmic perspective. It instantly makes you realize how incredibly tiny our daily frustrations actually are.
Ultimately, the Stoics held a super firm but really empowering line on personal accountability, because the passions result from our own cognitive engagement, that split-second choice of granting assent we talked about. Ancient Stoics believed we are entirely morally responsible for what we do while under their influence. Think of it kind of like driving intoxicated. There is simply no excuse for the damage you do while in the thrall of anger, because deciding to engage with that emotion in the first place was a choice you made.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. The very next time someone cuts you off, or maybe sends you one of those terribly passive-aggressive emails, and you feel that involuntary biological rush of adrenaline, what cognitive narrative are you going to choose to build? Are you going to grant assent to the anger and lose control? Or will you use your brand new ancient toolkit to step back, protect your peace, and maintain your eudaimonia? Remember, in that split second, the choice is entirely yours.